Hello, this is Josh Ensley with Safe Families for Children in Western Washington, and we're starting our webinar for Coaching 101. The idea for this is partly to share some information, but by and large to help with some connections, more connections with our coaches, and make it maybe a little easier to participate as hostings go on. As our program continues to grow, Nicole and I keep getting stretched thinner and thinner, and while I don't mind being thinner, I also feel like we can't get to all of the people without more coach help, and so we want to enable and help coaches get more and more connected. Sorry, that popped up there. I have to have email open to run the webinar, and that means that the emails are going to pop up from time to time. And I wondered if those that are in attendance, if you could type in that box maybe the team that you're a part of. So if you could go down to your message box there and just type the name of your team that you're part of, that would be great. And hopefully you know what I mean. At the bottom of your GoToMeeting box, there's a chat box. You can type it in there and type the name of your team. That would be great. I know that we have, there we go, Soma Eastside. Shelly is a coach there. And hello, Lucretia, who's at Our Savior's Baptist. We have our little regional conference has become a national conference, as we have Robin Chamberlain, the director of Safe Families in Maine, tuning in. So the pressure's really on, right? And then we have, I think I saw Peggy's name, Peggy from Fox Island. Yeah, there we go, Peggy at Fox Island. And so welcome to all of you, and that's the chat box, easy enough to use if you'd like to ask a question. I think I even have a webcam here I can click on, like so. Hi. And so one of the things I wanted to start with was that you guys did, the ones that are watching live, we just saw some pictures of my son Andrew, who's 6 months old, and I've shared this story with some people already, but when Andrew was about 2 months old, I remember just holding him and thinking how much that his mom and I love him, and just the enjoyment of that moment. But then I had this moment of sadness too, and just thought, you know, there's also a sense in which Andrew can't understand how much we love him, and he can certainly feel that connection and that closeness, but he just doesn't have that development yet to understand how much he is loved. And it made, then I had the thought, you know, I bet that's how God feels too sometimes, right? That God looks at us and loves us so much, and yet we don't have that development, we don't have that ability to understand how much God loves us, and he tries to orchestrate our days to help us understand how much he loves us, and he tries to reach out. He came as Jesus. He has to do so much to try and soften our hearts so that we'll be open to him. And I think that holds true so much for Safe Families as well. If we can see every person as so loved by God, and as a coach, if you can hold on to that and just see every person that you meet as so beloved by God, then I think that's almost all you'll need. The host families, there's host families are listening and will watch this, and host families get kind of beat up by the hosting, and they can get really, their attention is all on taking care of that kid, and from time to time host families can get judgmental of a bio parent, or they can just feel tired. And as the coach, so often your role is simply encouragement, is simply to remember that the mission is to grow relationship, and that the mission is that remembering that this person, no matter what their behavior is loved by God, and to treat them as such. And I think that goes so far. It goes almost all that we as coaches have to remember is to treat this family, this mom, as we're loved, as beloved as they are. And I also thought I would share a quote. This is from the 1700s, and it goes, "It is a fearful thing to hate whom God has loved. To look upon another, his weaknesses, his sins, his faults, his defects, is to look upon one who is suffering. He is suffering from negative passions, from the same sinful human corruption from which you yourself suffer. This is very important. Do not look upon him with the judgmental eyes of comparison, noting the sins you assume you'd never commit. Rather, see him as a fellow sufferer, a fellow human being who is in need of the very healing of which you are in need. Help him, love him, pray for him. Do unto him as you would have him do unto you." And that's from a Russian bishop named Saint Tikhon of Zadomsk, something like that. But I think that's a beautiful quote about remembering compassion for everyone, and that connection to everyone. Oh, I didn't say hello to Donna from Chapel Hill, so welcome, Donna, too. And today, I thought there's not a lot new that we're going to necessarily cover that's not in other Safe Families materials. If you go to safefamilies.net and are able to log in, and if you need help with your login info, just let us know. And then the top of the screen, it says My Trainings, and there's a whole list of family coach trainings there. The other thing we can do is send you some links to some newer trainings and connect you there. The other thing is, just yesterday, National Safe Families put out a webinar talking about the new trainings that are coming out, and so we're really excited about that. There's going to be a core training for any volunteer for Safe Families, and then there's going to be a new core training for host families, and it's going to be condensed, but also it hits all of the great materials that's already there, just kind of presents it in a newer format. And I know that one of the slides, as we were waiting, I put up a slide for kind of definitions of coaching, and I think that that's the first place that we can kind of run into some confusion, is that Safe Families uses this term family coach, and we used to use this term case coach, and I think we got away from that because it sounded really professional. So we didn't want it to seem like it's all about professionals, and so we started using the word family coach. And at the same time, that can still kind of send the message, or maybe can kind of cloud what the coach is really doing. And so I would just like you to think in your head kind of what are some definitions I already have of coaching as we go through this. And the two things we'll really be touching on are what's my role and what's my focus as a Safe Families coach. And so if you could even think of not just a definition of coaching, but think of an example of coaching, either an experience you've had of being coached, or even an experience of being a coach. So just take a moment and think of one. I would ask you to raise your hand, but that would be unhelpful for me, and so we won't do that. So if you're thinking of an experience of being coached, and then think about Safe Families, how does that experience fit with what we're about to talk about here? So that experience you had of being coached, how does that fit with what we mean by coach is somebody that comes along people during a challenge, and this challenge can be motivational, strategic, or informational. And so you can imagine that there's a challenge somebody faces. You're going to use a little bit different tools to come alongside them if it's motivation, if it's a strategic challenge, or just informational. And the experience that you're thinking of either coaching or being coached, you can even think in that situation, was that a motivational challenge, a strategic challenge, informational challenge? And then this next part, coaching is useful whenever we're working to enable others to build their own capacity to act. And so in that experience that you're thinking of, did that example of coaching, was it about building your capacity to act, or were you helping someone else build their own capacity to act? A lot of times coaches, with all the best intentions, can step in and kind of take over, and we're not really helping someone with their own capacity to act. In Safe Families for Children, coaching is based on relationships, and we keep repeating that over and over again, that our goal is to build relationships. We view success in the building of relationships because isolated families are going to have another crisis. And so we say over and over again that safety for our families is not an absence of crisis, it's the presence of relationships. In the next crisis, if there's more relationships, they're going to know who to turn to. They're going to know that there's people that love them, that are there for them. And so we repeat over and over again our goal of building relationships. And then, by and large, Safe Families coaches support our host families when they need to be encouraged, reminded of the bigger picture, or feel motivated. And so a lot of what coaches are doing is around motivation, is around encouragement and motivation. And so if you're still thinking of that example you had of a time you were coached or a time you did some coaching, and how does that compare with these definitions? And how does that compare with what we just talked about, this idea of coming alongside people, and this idea of helping people build their capacity to act? And if anyone has an example they'd like to share, you feel free to type in the box there, that you'd share, or and I can unmute you and you can talk to everyone, or you can just type it in there as well if you'd like. This next group of slides shows some examples to kind of make things more concrete for us of what effective coaching is like, and obviously what ineffective coaching is like. And so in Safe Families, as you can see there, we want to show up, we want to be present to another person's experience with listening with our head and with our heart. And it's really easy to show up on the ineffective side and to be so prepared that we want to figure out all the answers for them, and even before we hear or observe their challenges. And this was just really relevant yesterday. I met with a mom yesterday who doesn't speak English as their native language, and she understands a lot, but she doesn't speak it really well and prefers to have an interpreter. And we've been connected with her for about a month now. And it's really easy to think that I know the 5 things that would make her situation better, and I know where she should get housing, and I know what should be fixed for her. And yet yesterday, sitting down and listening and having an interpreter there and having this conversation, just realizing that she was well aware of the challenges she was having. She was well aware of steps to get out of it, but she also was aware of a lot of things that I wasn't. And so if I would just stay in those assumptions or judgments, it would be impossible to really have a connection with her. And so the importance of really valuing somebody else's experience and listening to them. In effective coaching, we try to help the coachee explore and make sense of their challenges and successes and what they've learned. On the ineffective side, it talks about false praising of them, only looking at strengths and not wanting to hurt feelings. And some of you have heard me talk about the difference between praising someone and affirming someone. And so often praising is just about us and what I think and how I feel, whereas affirming someone is more about them and their strengths and kind of the reality that they are in. We also want to look at helping them find solutions and not just focusing on criticism, and then asking questions instead of just telling them what to do. And I think that's one of the hardest parts, is not to just come in and rescue and take over and do everything for them, because maybe you're going to stay with them for the rest of their life, but you probably aren't. And so in a month or two, if you're not there, they won't have you to run the show for them, and that's really not helpful anyway. And so the more we can do to empower and equip and strengthen what others are doing is better. So in this box, I know we have a couple of host families and some coaches. If you could type in an example of what makes you feel like you have a coach? When do you feel coached or supported when you're hosting, if possible? And coaches, what types of thing makes it easy to coach, or what makes it difficult to be a coach? If you could think of anything there that you'd like to add, that would be great. I think one of the most difficult things about these webinars is to try and have some interaction and some connection, and not make it just if it's just informational, but we'll see if we get anything there. I know that for some of our host families, one of the biggest things is really just having a friend to call on the phone. And so in so many ways, a coach is really just another friend. And in the midst of a hosting, having somebody to call and talk to, whether it's daily or every couple of days, really does make a big difference. And a lot of times a coach can start off as somebody that is already a friend. And so just being that support and that encourager. Here in the office, I have a host family who has just come in, and Sharon is a coworker of mine, but she's also a host family, and so she's willing to share a little bit about what having a coach is for her. So this is Sharon.
I've had three different hostings, and at first I was wondering, well, why do I need a coach? But when my coach called me in the midst of my day, I work full-time as well, it was just a relief to just talk to someone about the challenges and have them listen. And even knowing that I didn't have to solve everything, like there were a few things that I needed some help with. One of the families, I had a work appointment, and I didn't have the time or effort to try to find somebody to take the 3-year-old for a few hours, and that coach kind of helped me think through it and find that. So that was helpful, and just listening was the needed thing. And I was glad that they called, not emailed or text, because it's easy to dismiss an email or a text, and it's just so much more personal to talk on the phone.
Cool. Thank you, Sharon. I forgot to turn the camera on. Then you could have had a visual there. She's running away now, so that's all. Oh, Lucretia, there we go. Lucretia is one of our coaches, and she says it's easier to coach when there's very open communication from the host family, and when we don't wait until it's too late to talk about issues. And so, yeah, it's really important for our host families to have that support, and then to be able to use that support. One of the things I talk about when I do a home study with families is that we hate to hear that someone doesn't feel supported, and the two main reasons that happens sometimes are that we didn't do a good job at having a team to support them. The other thing that often can happen is that a lot of our host families are just really functional families, and so they're able to handle a lot, and they're able to add a few chores to their day or add a few errands to their day, and yet all those things really do add up. Being able to let other volunteers step in and help and provide that assistance really goes a long way, and letting that coach be a part of coordinating that and help with either connecting those issues or letting other people fill some needs. It goes a really long way. The other thing it does is that there's all these other people that go to your church that are able to help out and be a blessing, and they really feel good. They feel like they've been part of the team by being able to fill in that family friend role. And
I just wanted to comment again as the host family, because that brings up that a lot of times, like I know when I said, oh yeah, everything we've got handled, and then just having the coach probe a little more about, well, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Maybe, we could get someone to do that. Would that help? So just probing that a little bit more for what coaches, and sometimes you don't know what you need until you're in the midst of things, and it can be, that's why the timing sometimes for the coaches, it can seem like last minute, but you think you can handle it, but you can't.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Sharon. That was great. And it really does, it really can feel like that for the host family, where they, and it can make a big difference just to call and offer that help, and that they may not have even been planning on receiving or may not have thought they needed, just being there as an encouraging ear, and can go a really, really long way. And I appreciate Lucretia highlighting the importance of communication, because so often our hostings kind of get set up a little bit last minute, and or it kind of, there's this last rush to get the hosting set up, and communication is often difficult at that time. And that's another goal we have, is to increase the participation of our coaches early on as we're getting the hosting set up. Have the coaches be part of that as well. And if you have other questions kind of about how Safe Families views the role of coach, feel free to type it in at the bottom there. So much of it is about encouragement and just maintaining the mission of Safe Families, compassionate relationships, and things generally go astray when we try to get into fixing, and it's not our role, and it's not it often doesn't work. And so the more we can maintain that role of encouragement and that vision of Safe Families for relationship, the further we go. So this part, I wanted to just touch on some of the focus points that, as a coach, right, you basically you have three focuses. You have the child, you have the host family, you have the bio parent, and sometimes you don't have all of them at once. Like maybe we'll have two coaches. Sometimes some teams like to do it that way, where they have a specific coach that meets with bio parents, and then the other coach that's there for the child and the hosting parent. And it's flexible to work, with what works for each team. But to just be thinking through, like, this is the sphere of what responsibilities we have as coaches, and this is where our focus lies. So a lot of this is repeated from other trainings, and sounds kind of basic, but just to be thinking through that as the child as your focus, just to be kind of eyes and ears that are looking out for safety of children, looking at this hosting. How is the child adjusting to the home, and how are they getting along with the other kids? How's their development or their behavior? Some of the kids might be on medicine. There may be some medical concerns, but we aren't trained. We don't have trained host families to handle extensive medical concerns. But there can be small things. We had a 3-year-old this morning going in for a surgery, and so how's that child doing in school if they're in school? And then are you kind of checking in on safety areas in the home? And ideally, the coach is somebody that comes alongside the family and is checking in on the phone. But ideally, we also like you to visit the home and visit with the family within the first 2 to 3 days of the hosting, and then also about once a week is a good goal to have, to check in on the home in person and be able to share with the family about that. The host family, when you're focusing on them, just looking at how are these parents doing, having the children as their guest, and what are the challenges and difficulties that are coming up, and are there other resources that would be helpful, and have they been speaking with the parent, and have they been in contact? Have we been able to pull in any family friends to support? So these are just kind of general questions to use, not that you have to go and write an essay and catalog each of these questions every time, but just kind of to pique your thinking in what to be thinking about and what to be asking in a hosting situation. Um, and then lastly, this one's about the bio parent, and parts of this slide make me kind of nervous, and I'll explain why in just a second. But how is the parent doing having their child separated? Do they have a good plan of what they need to change to get back on their feet? Let's see. Then I got my notes a little mixed up. Sorry about that. And then have they been in contact with their child and with the host family, as you can read there and on the other one as well. I hate to read through slides when I know you can read. So the thing that makes me nervous about this slide is that it's so easy when we're talking about the bio parent to start thinking about how to fix them, and start thinking about, just thinking about what do they need to do to get out of this situation and fix the situation. And we can quickly turn a person into a project, and then we're trying to just fix them instead of love them, or we're judging them instead of loving them. I think that's a Mother Teresa quote. If you're judging someone, you're not able to love them. And that's so key with safe families, is this continual thing we bump into with judging a parent or thinking that our goal is to fix the situation. And of course we want the situation to change. Of course we want the parent to grow and to develop and to have new skills, but that's not our number one goal, because apart from a loving relationship, those things don't really mean anything. And apart from relationship in general, those things generally aren't lasting. It's so easy for us to get into this fixing mode as opposed to going after relationship and trying to stay connected. And we've seen it happen where a group or a team kind of slips into fixing or judging, and then the relationship quickly or slowly just fades, and then they lose contact with the parent. It's really easy for our bio parents to feel judged or to feel looked down on. You're the have and they're the have-nots, and so they feel less than. As we continue to maintain relationship, then we often do see growth and change, but it's not on our terms. It's certainly not always the way we would have done it. But continuing to offer that relationship is our goal, and also gives that ongoing safety to the kids. We think this mom's not changing fast enough, and then we don't want to host the kids for her anymore. And really, all we've done is return the kids, is give up on the situation and return the kids to something that maybe wasn't safe or ideal. When I'm kind of rambling, but when they're with our host families, we do know that they're with a safe and loving family. We just don't know what the goals or the changes might be for the bio parents. We certainly don't know what God's will is in the situation, and it's just so easy to start judging and think that we do know. These kids, and generally those judgments mess the whole hosting up. And so the more we can stay with compassion and just stay in the moment that right now these kids are being loved, right now they're safe, then that goes such a long ways. I know in there's a series of books called Parenting with Love and Logic, a lot of people have heard of, and he says in there that a child's behavior isn't going to change really until they believe that they're loved. And that really goes a long way with our bio parents too, because most of them have lived lives where their whole life they haven't been loved well, they haven't been cared for, they haven't had healthy attachments, and so we're expecting this person that's never experienced life the way we have, or that's never been loved the way we have, to make these amazing dramatic changes, when really they need to know that they're loved. And I know there's a situation down in our southern region where the people were getting kind of frustrated because this mom just was not applying for jobs as quickly as they thought she should be, but she was having her kids hosted, and so it was easy to kind of have some resentments there. But it took months really for her to to feel the support and the love and connection from these families. And then she did start applying for jobs. But if they would have just kind of said, you know, you're not living up to my expectation of you, we're going to end this hosting, then that wouldn't have happened. And she wouldn't have gotten to that point, and she certainly wouldn't have believed that they love her. She's even gone to church with them a couple of times, which we don't always see happen, and we don't tell families they have to do that, but it's also a great thing when that does happen. So this slide here is 6 coaching questions, and so this is just a really simple way for you as a coach to have a conversation with any of those focus people, right? You could have this conversation with a child if they're they're old enough to talk, and get some basic information from them. But mainly, you could have this conversation with host families. You could have this conversation with a bio parent. If you were sitting down at coffee with a bio parent, you could have a conversation and include these questions and be able to come away with a pretty good encounter with that person. And you'll notice that there's nothing in here that says how you as the coach are going to step in and fix the problem. There's nothing in here that says you as the coach giving a plan or expectations to the family. It's really simple, right? How are you? And having a conversation about that. What are you celebrating? And letting somebody talk about what's going well, what's good right now, and what's giving them hope in their life right now. And then what challenges are you experiencing? So bringing up that question, just letting them name their challenges. And when we name the challenge for somebody, if they don't think that's a challenge, they don't care that we brought it up. It has to be something that they see as a challenge. And then what do you plan to do about those challenges? And letting it be their question, letting it be something that they're going to answer. They say that, like with kids, when you ask them, you know, would you like me to give you some suggestions, that kids are going to just ignore the first thing you say anyway. And that's often true with most people. So, but what do you plan to do about those challenges? Let the parent take ownership of the problem and give some things. And then you can say, how can I help you? Or would you like to hear how some other people have handled a challenge like that? And you can offer some things, but you're not telling them, and you're not trying to fix it for them, because for the long haul that just doesn't work when you try to just step in and fix it. And then finally, of course, how can I pray for you? How can we come together and bring this to God on your behalf? And I think this probably sounds like a conversation that you could have with a friend. And that's kind of our big idea with Safe Families, is that we're just coming along somebody like a friend. We're not the service provider. We're not the professional. We're like a friend that's coming alongside, expanding this person's social relationships, helping them move from social isolation to connection, to compassionate connection with people that genuinely care. And if they need a service provider like a counselor, well, you don't have to be their counselor. We don't want you to be their counselor. We can connect them to somebody. You can connect them to a counselor. If they need to get other professional services, well, let's try to make those connections. But you don't have to be the service provider ever. You are there to be coming alongside like a friend. And by bringing those connections, both to the host family and to the bio family, then you're just kind of creating more of an environment where healing can happen. More of an environment where this person can hopefully move from chaos to more of peace. And we do see good things happen when people create space for that. But again, the good things aren't always the goal, right? The goal is to grow relationship and connection with these families. If anyone has questions, please type in the question if you would like. We're almost done with our material here. Basically just wanted to touch on a brief introduction to what Safe Families coaching looks like, and some of the ways that we define that role, and also just briefly, what is your focus as a coach? And I think most of you have my email address, and Nicole's as well. that 877 number is our on-call number that families can call anytime to talk to one of us, and if there's a need to talk to us. And some of the things that you can take from this, one would be, as you're around coaches, or if you're in a situation that seems like coaching, just kind of think about how that role is coming across. Is this somebody that's coming alongside, or is this somebody that's taking over? And then also just to be thinking about how would I come along anytime you're encountering somebody. How would I come alongside a person in that situation? Whether you hear about them on the news or you hear about them at church, if I was a coach for that person, how would I come alongside them? And another thought would be in that opening section when I talked about how God loves us all, how we're all equally beloved by God. That's a stumbling spot for a lot of our teams, not because they don't believe people are loved, but because it's so easy to start seeing people differently and start judging them. And so even just think right now of somebody that really annoys you, and you probably don't have to think too long, but if you haven't thought of someone yet, maybe just think of a politician or something like that. But somebody that really annoys you, and then just remember, that person too is beloved by God. Maybe imagine that person being embraced by Jesus and knowing that the same compassion he has for everyone, for these children, is the same compassion he has for that person. And last night I was talking to some people, and they were concerned for this bio mom, and really mad at that bio mom's parent, so at the grandma essentially, and I said to them, that grandma, when she was mom's age, she didn't have anyone to love her like you, and I think that's so true, that the love that you guys offer as Safe Families teams can change the trajectory of people's lives, and can change the trajectory of these children's lives, because there's loving adults that are offering compassionate connection to them to bring a different trajectory to their life. Having said all that, that's all we're going to talk about today, is just a little bit of our definition and focus of coaching. Nicole, my colleague here at Safe Families, is here as well. And so she wants to just share a word too.
Hi, this is Nicole. I wanted to say, if any coaches are listening and feeling like there's a disconnect between the needs of the host family and tapping into their family friend network, I'm really happy to do some U-Share training and figure out how we can utilize your mini army that most churches have within the U-Share network that they aren't tapping into. So feel free to email me or get a hold of me, and I'm happy to help make that connection.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nicole. And then the other thing that I wanted to end with is that one of my goals is for every meeting I have with families to have a coach come with me. And so I know that people's schedules tend to be really crazy, but the earlier that a coach is part of the hosting, the better off. And if from the start that bio parent has met you and knows you as a coach, then it just makes it that much easier to stay in connection and relationship with you and talking with you. And plus, you as a coach would see how pretty simple it is to meet with families and see how I do it, and you'd be able to have similar conversations with families yourself. And so hopefully you'll be able to come along with me at some point when we're meeting with families. We're going to wrap things up. We're just, this is question answer time, so feel free to leave questions if you'd like, but you're also free to disconnect and log off. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a really great weekend, and appreciate you taking the time to be part of our webinar today. Thanks.
you.